Oh, these joys of British media twisting themselves into horrible knots with a Trump advisor. It is the most predictably wonderful experience that reminds me of poking a lion with a stick and acting surprised when it roars. An example of this most recent tradition is the interview featuring Tim Murtaugh as the other. Murtaugh came ready to discuss the victor in the election, and what did he get? A buffet of loaded inquiries on whether Donald Trump would accept the results were he to lose. Let's dig in and enjoy the fireworks.
100,000 that she's going to be short coming out of Philadelphia. She's 900,000 votes in the hole in Pennsylvania at a state that was razor thin last time and was decided by 80,000 votes. I don't know how she digs out of that hole.
Okay, stop right there. The interviewer goes ahead and poses a perfectly normal election-type question about numbers and results. But wait for it, to ask Murtaugh if Trump would accept the results were he to lose. Yeah, you got that right, while barely halfway through the counting process. Now, I may not be a specialist in anything, but if you tell me before the race concludes that I would not agree with race results, I'm scratching my head too. It's like telling a poker player if they will flip the table when losing while still holding 4 aces. It's ridiculous. And naturally, Murtaugh nails it. Immediately, he becomes defensive, asking why this question isn't asked of Democrats either. Good point. When was the last time Hillary Clinton got grilled about her indefinite grievance tour regarding the 2016 election? Oh, that's right. Never. It's almost as if there's a double standard. Almost.
A lot of people want to know, look, this is going to be close. It's looking, as you said, like Donald Trump is pulling out a lead at the moment in some places, but it's early. Is he going to accept the result if it's called against him?
Hold on a second. We're talking about as the results are coming in, and we're talking about state-by-state issues, state-by-state results that are coming in. You're going to ask me, as we're like an hour and a half into this, whether or not we're going to accept the results? Do you ask any Democrats that question? When was the last time when was the last time you asked a Democrat?
Oh, wow. Murtaugh is just leaning into this one like a pro. And honestly, you can't blame him. British mainstream media has the subtlety of a sledgehammer when judging bias.
Okay, but
Jamie Raskin
he still says he won the 2020
Jamie Raskin, who is a Democrat member of Congress, says that he may not vote to certify this election if Donald Trump wins. Have you asked any Democrats about that question? Have you asked Hillary Clinton? She called Donald Trump an illegitimate president after he beat her in 2016. Did you ever ask her or any other Democrat that question? Did you?
He still says he won the 2020 election.
This is where Murtaugh really lets loose, throwing out examples like Jamie Raskin and Hillary Clinton. He brings up Raskin, who suggested he wouldn't certify the elections if Trump wins, being a sitting Democrat in Congress. And Hillary, let's not forget about her calling Trump an illegitimate president after the year 2016. But has anyone ever asked them if they would accept the results? Not at all. And here's the kicker. The interviewer does not push back. Instead, he awkwardly pivots, which is practically an admission by him that Murtaugh has a point. From there, Murtaugh fires another shot.
Governor Stacey Abrams of Georgia doing? How's she doing? Have you ever asked them any of those questions?
So the answer is
In a free and fair election, we will accept the results, absolutely.
Is this a free and fair election?
Well, it's still going on, isn't it?
And your gut feeling is?
Our gut feeling is that Donald Trump is winning this race. Anything else? You want to talk about the actual results that are coming in?
And if
you brought me up here to ask about the results of what's coming in, and now you're asking these ridiculous questions.
In case you've forgotten, Abrams has been claiming for years that she's the rightful governor of Georgia, the state she lost by over 50,000 votes. 50,000. That bit about Abrams got delivered with just the right cut of sarcasm that it becomes deadly and takes the media's selective outrage right into its heart. She has never conceded her loss in Georgia, but nobody's demanding that she would have to accept the results. I mean, why should consistency bother in a good narrative? One of the most satisfying instances comes when finally Murtaugh mentions the absurdity of the whole questioning.
This is how I stood here and waited for you for 20 minutes, and this is the question you're going to ask me?
He's quite visibly frustrated, and honestly, who wouldn't be? Imagine when you go to a dinner party and end up finding the host serving out cold leftovers and demanding to know why Republicans exist. One can feel that very frustration, heavily earned.
If he wins North Carolina, which we don't know, it's early, how do you see the path forward? Does that suggest to you that several of the Sun Belt states are going to go his way?
Absolutely it does. I think if North Carolina comes in, it looks like it's very, very close to being called. And I think that Georgia looks like it's in very solid shape. What we're seeing here is that Donald Trump has effected an enormous expansion of the Republican Party. Think about the coalition that he has put together. He has got Arabs, he's got the imams, Muslim imams in Dearborn, Michigan. He's making inroads in the Jewish community. He's probably going to rack up a record level of black support. He's getting double-digit gains into Latino voters. He's obviously going to have conservative Republicans and also mainstream traditional Republicans.
Finally, we come now to some real analysis. Then Murtaugh starts in on the numbers for states like North Carolina and Georgia, and that's where it really gets interesting. He brings up the fact that under Trump's coalition, Arabs have come to include groups traditionally having difficulty with the Republicans: Muslim imams in Michigan, black voters, and Latinos. This was the kind of meat that should have been at the centre of the interview from the outset. Murtaugh's statement is clear and to the point. Trump has taken the Republican Party and broadened it into a more diverse tent than it has traditionally been. Agree or disagree, that makes it a compelling discussion. Instead of dealing with it, though, the interviewer appears flustered.
At the same time, he's getting probably 2-to-1 over labor union members. Not necessarily the labor union leadership themselves, but the people who work in the union, so much to the point where the Teamsters declined to endorse Kamala Harris. It's the first time in a generation that the Teamsters failed to endorse her. So in Pennsylvania, for example, they went so far in all the states, they released their internal numbers of their membership. And in Pennsylvania, it was 60-30 in favor of Donald Trump. Union members, Teamsters members supporting him. It's an incredible coalition that I don't think that any Democrat or Republican has matched in, 50 years.
Okay, final question.
Then comes the bombshell with unions. Murtaugh just haphazardly states that Trump is winning over union members, while their leadership usually favours Democrats. The cherry? Teamsters, a well-known union, did not give the nod to Kamala Harris, something that has not occurred in decades. This should have been a moment for the interviewer to dig deeper into union members stating that they were breaking rank, considering what this says about the changes in the political climate. But nope. Then it's leading into yet another vaguely phrased question about the mood inside Trump.
We expect him to be here. Do you know what time he'll be here? Any sense of the mood in Mar-a-Lago?
Oh, the mood is very high. I do know that. I don't know what time he would be coming over here or not.
Appreciate your time.
Speaking of the mood of the current president, the interviewer ends it with a soft question concerning the latest happenings. Classic fill-in question, and he answers it politely enough, but one can tell he has already retired from the discussion by now. In truth, one doesn't need to care about how things feel at Mar-a-Lago. The real story lies in the numbers, how Trump has rearranged the Republican Party and created a coalition that defies every expectation. But as the British media say, that's too complicated for them. And then, to add icing on this cake of wreckage, the interviewer has to apologise for Murtaugh's offensive language. Offensive language? The guy sweared once after dealing with ridiculous questions, didn't insult anyone, and didn't even slightly raise his voice. Calling bias is now offensive.
Okay, there we go. We just got to apologise for the language there. I know it's late, particularly late in the UK, but we always have to apologise when there is bad language, slightly feisty interview. There we go, not the first, and probably...
This is the moment, frankly, perfectly capturing the whole interview. The British press loves to play the fair referee, while pretending to be neutral and quietly rooting for one side. But when someone calls them out, they clutch their pearls and act like they have been scandalised. Both predictable and deeply amusing. In the end, what mattered was not that the interview had turned into an argument about Trump or the election, but that it was a media masterclass in bias and how to handle it. Tim Murtaugh was ready, loudly calling out the hypocrisy and trying to direct attention to real issues. Meanwhile, the British interviewer was floundering in his attempt to defend his loaded questions. It is a lesson that if you want to put your nose in political debate, prepare yourself. And maybe, just maybe, don't presume that your guest will sit quietly and let you create a narrative. Because sometimes they just push back. There you have it, a high-nerve interview, and an enraged Trump advisor, while the British media host is left apologising to viewers for, well, doing his job badly. Cheers to Tim Murtaugh for keeping it interesting, and here's hoping for more fiery interviews to come. After all, who doesn't appreciate a train wreck on live television?